My name is Peter Romero. I have the privilege of speaking today on this honor flight that has brought me to Baltimore, Virginia, and to visit all the monuments that are located in this area. I have been asked to talk about my experience during the Korean War. I'm a Korean War veteran and proud of it. Some of the things that they asked me to talk about would be funny, and some of them that I could remember are not so funny. But I recall something that happened that was kind of funny. We were trying to celebrate Christmas in 1951, and we happened to get a bottle of cognac, and me and my friends started sharing drinks out of the same bottle, and it was snowing, and it started to snow pretty heavy, so we decided to head back to our bunker, and we were trying to walk over this small ridge, or a hill better, maybe 48 inches high, maybe 5 feet high, I don't know. Nobody bothered to measure anything in those days. And we get to the top of this little mountain, we keep slipping and falling back down, and we started laughing. We couldn't get over this little hill. So we tried again. We're holding on to each other, and we get to the top. When we slip and fall back down, we laugh. Well, I never laughed so hard in Christmas in Korea in my whole life. That's about the funniest part of the whole thing during the Korean War. Finally, we crawled over the hill and went to our bunker, still laughing our heads off. But that was something that really happened, and we were fortunate to get that bottle of booze. The other thing that they asked me to talk about is a thing that I have mentioned to other veterans and different organizations that would happen to me when we were coming from patrol early in the morning after being out all night, search and destroy. We were coming back to our fire base, and there was a snake that crawled underneath the rice paddy that we were crossing. And I stopped the squad, and I pulled my M1 rifle, and I shot the head off of the snake on the other end of the rice paddy. And this gentleman from North Carolina was in the rear of the rifle squad, and he went and picked up the head and the snake. And I acted like I knew what I was doing, but that was a miracle shot. And I have told that story several times to different veterans and different people, and they don't believe me. But that actually happened. And even when we got back to the base, our home base, our outpost, even the lieutenant and the captain didn't believe us until the gentleman from North Carolina showed him the snake and showed him the head that I had shot off with the M1 rifle. And then some of the Koreans that were interpreters, South Koreans that were there in our unit, they make it a point to grab that snake and run off with it. They want to cook it and eat it. That was the funny part about that situation. But the sad part of the whole thing that happened to me during the Korean War, in any given war, whether you want to call it a war, a police action, or a conflict, when the people, I should say the persons that are involved in a conflict, they know it's a war. When you get the notice that from the Air Force that they see a lot of movement, when you have 200,000 enemy coming at you at a given time, you know you better prepare yourself for a war, not a conflict or a police action. I understand that the one that started that comment about Korea being a police action was a reporter who never served in the military, and he decided just to call it a police action. But anyway, we had I sustained about 6 firefights and 2, maybe 3 major battles. And one of the major battles was we relieved the 2nd Division and their regiment that was there on Heartbreak Ridge, and we took over that ridge, and we took on the onslaught of the Chinese at Heartbreak Ridge. And one of the friends that I had met that had approved the African Americans to participate in the fighting, they desegregated them from being in the back and then put them in the front lines. And there was a lot in one division, which was the 24th Division, that had a whole regiment of African Americans. But anyway, a lot of other divisions and regiments had also African Americans in your company. And this one I got acquainted with, and we had a firefight, and sometimes the Chinese would attack with maybe 15 Chinese, and then they would retreat right away. But the reason for that was they wanted to find out where your firepower was, where were the machine guns located, and they would key into that one area with more people. Later on, maybe an hour or two, and then they come on with a bigger force, and they would attack in human waves. You shoot them, you fire at them, and you try to shoot them as fast as you can, and right behind them, when they first line goes down, right behind them, another Chinese will come behind them and pick up the rifle, and they keep on coming. But anyway, my friend got shot, and I tried to put a tourniquet on his head, but it didn't work. He died in my arms in 1952. That's when the Chinese decided to throw in 200,000 Chinese into the fight. His name was Thomas F. Kehoe, United States Army, May the 10th, 1952, in Korea. And I have the bracelet to show that he died on my arms that night. So that's about the worst thing that ever happened to me as far as seeing your friends getting wiped out, and some of them survived. I remember another incident that we were under fire, and this gentleman from Bakersfield, California, was tall and slim. He folded up, and I thought he was wounded. And I put a military carry on him and took him to a first aid station. From there, they took him on a helicopter to a hospital ship. And about a week later, he wrote to me, and he told me that he thanked me that I was a hero, that I saved his life. But he didn't get shot. He had a appendicitis attack that folded him up, and I thought he was wounded. That was, I guess, a funny thing that happened. But I try to take care of your own man. We try to take care of each other, and that's what camaraderie is all about when you're under fire. And when I got back home, we had exchanged addresses. He wrote to me and told me, come and visit me, Bakersfield, California. So I went, and he was already working. He said, you stay here, I'll be back. And we went, he went to work, and I waited for him in Bakersfield, California. That's when the popular song was, The Streets of Bakersfield. I don't know anybody of California ever heard that song, but that was way back in the 50s. I forget the artist that wrote that song, but it was a song that is called The Streets of Bakersfield. Anyway, he'd come and pick me up after work, and he would go to a bar where he used to, his watering hole, he called it. So we went there, and he'd tell the bartender, this man saved my life during the Korean War. And we didn't even spend a dime. Everybody that was there knew him. Perkins was his name. And he introduced me as his hero, that I had saved his life. We had beer coming out of our ears. We didn't spend a penny. Everybody was real nice. And then we finished drinking there. We go across the street in Bakersfield. They had bars on one side of the street and on the other side. I guess that's where the song comes from, the streets of Bakersfield. You can just cross the street and there's another bar. We cross the street and he does the same thing. Hey, Jim, I want you to meet my friend. He saved my life during the Korean War. He didn't even go into detail what happened. And that's the one that had the appendicitis attack. He said, where did you get hit? Right here. And that was the scar that he had when they removed the appendix. But they caught it in time. I guess in reality, I did save his life. So that's one thing that he never said to anybody. But I realized later, but maybe I did save the man's life because they got and saved him. They got the appendix in time before it burst in there, and he might have died from it. I don't know. But a lot of people ask me, what's a military carry? Well, that's a way that you carry a body that could be almost twice your weight. In the way you carry it, you can do that, and that's why it's called a military carry. But I think I overstayed my welcome in Bakersfield, California, because we were running out of bars where we could go and drink for free. But I had a real good time, and I had realized that I had met a best friend that I ever knew in my whole life. And from there, I went to further on down Southern California, and I got a job. And then I went back home and met my wife, and I married her, and I took her back to California. I lived and worked in California for 44 years after the Korean War. And the bottom line of the story is that there was a veteran that was doing interviews in an electronic company, and I had taken a crash course in auto mechanics, GI school. I wanted to be a race driver mechanic with a super duper engines, but that never materialized because the whole building burned down. But I had enough learning that I had first stall in the auto repair school. And the first stall is where somebody comes and needs to work on a car and it's pretty major. They send them to the first stall for veterans that have more experience on mechanics than the rest of them. They're there just to collect their money. And we did a good job of doing fixing cars. But in the middle, they had an upholstery shop, and on the other end, they had welding classes, all veterans in that school. In the welding department, that's when the fire started. Somebody wanted to ignite the torch, and it blew up or something, the tank, and right next door was a lot of cotton and stuff that they were using for the upholstery class. And that building went up in flames very long. Well, I had that in my resume, and this veteran was explaining to me that this job entails a crankshaft in the bottom, which pushes and pulls and crimps parts for electronics. If you can pass a test, a physical test, you got the job. He was a WW2 veteran, and he said, I'm going to give you a chance because I see your resume, you're a Korean War veteran. Yes, sir. I passed the test and I got the job. I got the job as a assembly mechanic. They had about 4 machines, and I would set them up and I would run production. I had 4 assistants that would run the machine after I trained them how to run it. And about 4 months later, they got some more machines and more people, and I got a promotion. Now I was a setup specialist. Same place, same machines, but I had more people and more machines. And then they hired some more people in another department, and they had a welding and soldering department. And then they got some more people, and I had to certify the welders and the solders per OSHA specification and NASA, because we were doing government jobs. I did all that with a mere high school education. But the very beginning, there was a veteran that gave me the chance to do this, gave me the opportunity. After being in the service, you come out disciplined, you got a little knowledge, more experience than you did when you had a diploma in your hand and you couldn't get a job because you didn't have no experience. Anyway, in those days, they had what you call a working foreman. So now I'm in charge of 3 or 4 departments, working foreman. So I'm getting promoted and I'm getting more money. As long as you have government contracts, at that time there was a race to the moon against the Russians. You might recall that. Now I'm a civilian, but I'm still using knowledge that I had learned while I was in the service. And all this is hands-on doing because nobody ever showed me anything, but the little experience that I had was on the machine that I had worked off a cam underneath, and they push and pull and they crimp. And you had to adjust it and all that. But they had other machines that they come in, I learned them firsthand. And then I decided I went to Rio Hondo College in Pasadena, took a supervision course. Number 1, and I passed it, and I put it in a resume, and I showed it to my manager, and then he made me a supervisor. I went back to school, and there was a supervision 2. I took that course, and I passed it. And that course taught you a little bit more about bookkeeping. The first course, supervision, showed you how to talk to people, how to handle people without upsetting them, how to treat them like when they make a mistake, how to correct it and without blowing them away in their mind. That worked out real good to me, and that fell in real good because I felt that I was a disciplined veteran and I was happy to be home healthy enough.
My memory's about to run out. To finish with, where do you live in New Mexico now?
Las Cruces. I live off close to the Oregon Mountains off of Highway 70.
How long have you lived in Cruces now?
11 years. I lived in California for 44 years. I retired from California and I went to Arizona. I lived in Apache Junction, Arizona for 3 years. I started to get involved in Arizona with the veterans organization. There I joined the Korean War Association. I didn't bring my medal with me, but that's where the rep from Korea gave us all the little medal that I had, maybe you saw it, to all the Korean War veterans for saving their country in South Korea. I got a medal for that. But
Thank you very much.
All right. See, as I went along, I thought about a lot of things, didn't I?
Got to talking.
I went all the way from Korea to Pasadena.